stars explode in the quiet night.
The low hum built into a piercing whine as the iron projectors on the sky dancer's wings charged. Aris's knuckles were white on the control yoke. His entire world narrowed to the targeting reticle superimposed on the vibrant, deadly emerald swath of Ring Sector Delta 9. This wasn't a delicate scientific instrument anymore. It was a lightning rod, and he was about to throw it into the heart of the storm. Projectors at full charge, firing. He pressed the trigger, twin lances of visible, charged energy shimmering like heat haze speared from the shuttle into the dense field of ring particles. For a heart-stopping second, nothing happened. Then, the void itself seemed to crackle to life. Static discharges, like miniature blue-white spiders, skittered across the Sky Dancer's reinforced hull. The cockpit lights flickered. A warning chime sounded. "Come on," Aris muttered, his eyes glued to the scanner. "Take the bait." The ring sector, charged with its own inherent electricity and now supersaturated with the shuttle's ions, reacted. It wasn't a single bolt. It was a cascading failure of the void's patience. A web of plasma lightning, raw and incandescent, erupted through the targeted area. The light was blinding, forcing the cockpit filters to opaque momentarily. The sound was a physical blow that transmitted through the ship's frame straight into Aris's bones. The temperature reading for Sector Delta 9 plummeted. On the visual display, the vibrant, toxic emerald glow of the algae winked out, replaced by a dull, frosted gray. The lightning had flash-frozen the particulate matter, forcing the chroma algens into instant dormancy. "Yes, it works," Aris yelled, a fierce grin splitting his face. The shuttle shuddered around him, but it held. "Next sector, Delta 7. He wrenched the controls, banking the Sky Dancer hard to port. The rings, which from a distance had looked like a serene painting, were now a terrifyingly active environment. Chunks of ice the size of houses tumbled in a silent, complex ballet. Glittering dust clouds occluded his vision, and smaller particles tapped against the hull like a hail of diamond shards. He was a gnat flying through a galactic avalanche. Delta 7 locked, firing projectors. Another volley of iron beams. Another, smaller but still violent, web of lightning answered the call. The concussion wave from the discharge rattled the shuttle, sending a fresh chorus of proximity alarms singing. A spinning shard of crystalline ice, sheared off by the thermal shock, tumbled past the canopy, missing by meters. "Whisper status on the bloom," Aris asked, fighting to keep the shuttle level. Toxicity levels in Sector Delta 7 dropping rapidly. Dormancy achieved. Moving to final major cluster, Sector Delta 3. Aris pushed the throttle, weaving through the glittering chaos. Oceanus itself now loomed beside him, a terrifyingly vast wall of swirling gas, its immense gravitational pull a constant, unnerving presence. His navigational displays showed the storm systems raging in its upper atmosphere, systems he was now mimicking on a microscopic scale. Final target, Delta 3, he lined up the shot. This was the largest and most dense of the toxic blooms, a pulsing, sickly green nebula trapped in ice. "Pour everything we have left into this one. I want a full-power, sustained burst." Advising caution, Doctor. Reactor output is at 118%. Hull integrity at 87% and dropping due to micro-impacts. "No choice, Whisper. If we don't knock this one out, it'll just reseed the others. Fire projectors, maximum charge." The iron beams that lanced out were thicker, brighter, tearing through the void with angry intent. The response was instantaneous and apocalyptic. The ring didn't just discharge, it detonated. A colossal, branching tree of raw plasma, so bright it bleached the color from everything, engulfed the Sky Dancer. The sound was beyond sound. Every console in the cockpit erupted in a shower of sparks. The force of the blast sent the shuttle into a violent, uncontrollable tumble. Aris was thrown against his harness, his head snapping back, vision blurring into a smear of light and darkness. The G-forces were immense, crushing. A synthesized voice screamed warnings about hull breaches and primary power failure. Aris fought against the spinning, his training taking over where his conscious mind faltered. He slammed his hand on the emergency stabilizer override. With a jerking, protesting whine, the shuttle's attitude thrusters fired, fighting the spin. Another explosion rocked the craft from the rear, an overloaded power conduit bursting. Finally, the tumble slowed. The Sky Dancer drifted, a wounded bird trailing smoke and vapor. The main lights were dead, replaced by the frantic red glow of emergency systems. "Whisper status," Aris gasped, tasting blood in his mouth. He'd bitten his cheek. A moment of static, then the AI's voice, slightly distorted but calm, filled the cockpit. "Hull breach in Cargo Bay 2. Contained, primary reactor offline, switching to auxiliary power, life support stabilized. Iron projectors are destroyed." Aris let out a shuddering breath. The target, Delta 3. Scanning, primary objective achieved. Toxic bloom in sectors Delta 3, 7, and 9 now in full dormancy. Toxin production has ceased. Relief, warm and heady, washed over him, dulling the ache in his muscles. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. He looked out the cracked canopy. The emerald glow was gone, replaced by the dormant gray. The violent electrostatic activity was subsiding, the ring returning to its usual silent majesty. "Can we make it back to Aethelgard?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Auxiliary power is sufficient for a controlled descent. Navigation systems are marginal. It will be an interesting landing." "Just get us down, Whisper," Aris said, leaning back in his seat and closing his eyes. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. Anywhere on Turtle Reef Alpha will do. The return journey was a limping, precarious affair. The Sky Dancer, its sleek form now scarred and blackened, cut a wobbly path through Aethelgard's atmosphere, trailing a thin plume of smoke. Aris guided it manually, his instruments flickering, relying on instinct and Whisper's calm directional cues. He finally set down with a jarring, grinding impact not far from the horizon's Whisper, skidding to a halt in a field of purple moss. For a long moment, he just sat there, listening to the creak of cooling metal and the hiss of escaping gases. Then he unstrapped himself, cycled the damaged hatch, and stumbled out onto the living rock. The air had never smelled sweeter. He knelt, pressing his hand against the moss, feeling the steady, reassuring thrum of the turtle reef's heartbeat. He had made it. He was alive. He looked up. The sky was still chaotic, the storms still raging. It would take time for the poison to clear the whale systems, for their biology to restore balance to the atmosphere. But the source was cut off. The bleeding had stopped. As if in answer, a familiar, deep resonant call echoed from the high atmosphere. It was one of the healthy pods, their song clear and strong, a thread of harmony weaving through the atmospheric discord. It wasn't a song of victory yet, but it was no longer a song of despair. Aris Thorne, the Stormbringer, sat on the back of a giant and watched the sky, waiting for the healing to begin. The most dangerous part was over. Now he had to see if his desperate gamble would truly pay off. The fate of a world rested on the recovery of its celestial giants.